Patriots. So, again, today we have the amazing Dr. Sebastian Gorka. How are you today, sir?
Very well, very well. Glad to be back.
Yeah, we're glad to have you back. So, is it okay if we ask you a few more questions just like last time?
Fire away.
All right. So, starting off, what's the first thing he'll do when he gets back into office?
Well, there's so many things right now. Lots of people working for him are drafting executive orders that he can sign if, God willing, we get him reelected and we do our part, that he can sign as soon as he's sworn in on January the 20th. The most obvious things are undoing everything that the Biden regime reversed. So whether it's his cancellation on day one of the XL Keystone pipeline or fracking or our border security regime, all of these things, we have to flick the switch back because President Trump provided us prosperity and security. So I think it's going to be a full court press across all of these issues: economics, national security, getting rid of DEI lunacy in federal government, the student loan, the unconstitutional student loan write-off on the back of the American taxpayer. All of these things have to be dealt with. But I think the one that will be at the top of the pile will be shutting down the border and starting the mass exportation of illegals, starting with all the cartel members, all the criminals that Biden has led into this country in the last 4 years.
Absolutely. And it is in the nature of President Trump to not worry about what has been, but worry more so about what will be and how he can turn our country around and make it better than it has been. That's why his entire thing is make America great again. Do you agree with President Trump that mass deportation of illegals almost immediately is possible?
Well, look, I'm friends with Mark Morgan, the former Commissioner of Customs and Border Protection. My wife was actually his press secretary. I'm also friends with Tom Homan, the former acting director of ICE for President Trump. And, they are the guys that know. They are the guys who on the front line affected President Trump's immigration policies that made us safe. And every time I've spoken to them, they've said, not only can it be done, it must be done. Just think of one thing. Think of just the very simple numbers. I had Stephen Miller, the architect of the president's immigration policy, on my show a few months ago for a whole hour. And I asked Stephen, so how many illegals are there in America? Because we've heard this study from Yale for the last 20 years that there are 12 million illegals in America. And you think, hang on a second, the number can't be static. It can't be 12 million for 2 decades, especially after the border was opened to millions of illegals under Joe Biden. And I asked Steve, so how many is it? And he said, it's 40 million. So we have 40 million illegals in America. If you just do the math, especially under the Biden regime of the at least 20 million who were let in the last 4 years, if only 1% of them are bad people, members of cartels, foreign assets, jihadis from the Middle East, if only 1% of the 20 or 40 million mean us harm, those are divisional size assets. That's a literal invasion of the United States. And we've seen it. I mean, we could spend the next hour just reciting the names of the young women, the mothers, the girls who've been attacked, raped, and killed by illegals, whether it's Laken Riley in Georgia, whether it's Rachel Marin, the mother of 5, not far from where I am, whether it's that beautiful 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungare, who was raped by 2 illegals from Venezuela and then strangled and thrown into a ditch. You hear from the left this, after every school shooting, they say, how many more children do have to die? If we ban these guns, it's worth it to save one life. Well, based upon their logic, if we can save the life of one Jocelyn Nungare, one Laken Riley, shouldn't we seal the border? So the utter hypocrisy of the left is patently obvious here, but it has to stop now. And I think, look, there's something really ironic. I don't know if you thought about this in the politics of winning a campaign. What was the one issue that really led to President Trump's victory in 2016? It really was the border, right? It was the build the wall mantra. That's what got him elected, with the other things, but really build the wall. If you are smart and you're the Democrats and you know that's what he won on in 2016, what is the one issue you try not to give back to him as a winning issue 8 years later? The one issue you'd say, okay, let's not make immigration a problem because then he might win again. And instead of staying away from the issue, they've doubled down, they've tripled down, they've quadrupled down. So it's up to us. We take nothing for granted. We've got less than 2 months. But if, God willing, President Trump wins, he's likely to win on exactly the same issue that the left helped him win on 8 years ago the first time.
Exactly, because one thing about the left is they tend to be quite careless and view actual care for issues as racism or some other form of discrimination. And on your topic of crime just going rampant, not just from that of illegals, but just in general, well, Biden and Harris and now potentially, and God forbid, walls coming in. So in 72 hours, if my studies are correct, 7 hero law enforcement officers were shot and 13 were killed in just August. And Kamala Harris and the Democrats claim crime is down. So what is your take on that?
This is one of the most cynical aspects. So, and it ties into the border as well. Gaslighting is not an adequate label for what we're witnessing with regards to what the Democrats would have you believe. So when it comes to the border, they say the same thing. They say, oh, illegal immigration is down. It's less than it was under Trump. And it's like, hang on, how is 20 million less than when we secured the border down to nothing, to a trickle? Well, because they've redefined illegal immigrant. How are these people coming into America? People don't know the minutiae. So the American taxpayer, your mother, me, all across America, we have paid for the creation of something called the CBP-1 app. And illegals from all over the world, from Afghanistan to Sudan, can make their way to Mexico, download the app that we paid for, and then they pre-clear themselves. They say, hi, my name is John Smith. I'm seeking asylum. And then they register on the app that we paid for. They come to the border and they show the Border Patrol agent, hi, I'm registrant number XP712. And then they're waved into the country. They are pretending that because they registered themselves, that they're actually a legal immigrant, not an illegal immigrant. It's smoke and mirrors. They're doing exactly the same with crime. When you look at San Francisco and where Kamala used to be the DA, they've said that if you steal from a store anything that's less than $1,000, it's not a crime. I mean, George Orwell couldn't make this up. I mean, in 1984, Big Brother says, war is peace, peace is war, freedom is tyranny. They literally, reverse the meaning of words. When they say crime is down, it's because if you steal anything under $1,000, it doesn't count as a crime. This is the insane world we live in. And they use that for the reporting of federal crime statistics. So the bulk of theft just magically disappears because they say, that's not a crime anymore. That's how cynical, how absolutely ideologically driven the left have become.
Absolutely. Because it's either a matter of they don't care or they want this to happen for, God knows why. And
Well, we know why. We know why. When it comes to illegal immigrants, we know why. I mean, Nancy Pelosi said this on a cable show last Saturday. They've said that this is the polite way of saying it. They say all of these people have to be given a pathway to citizenship. Why? 40 million people who came here illegally have to be made Americans. Why? Because the Democrats are so racist. They're such a bunch of bigots. They think that if you've got brown skin color, if you're from Guatemala, you're going to vote Democrat. You know, the thing about liberals is they don't have babies. And if you're not having babies, where are your future voters going to come from? And they think just magically waving a wand and turning 40 million, Hispanics and Africans and Afghans into Americans means that they will vote for the Democrats because it's the opposite of what MLK said. What did MLK say in his great speech? He said, I have a dream that one day my children will be judged upon the content of their character, not their skin color. This is the opposite. Oh, you're brown, you're a Democrat. This is how racist and bigoted they are. And, this is personal for me. Look, I'm an immigrant. I came here legally. I waited in line. I paid my money. I did my test. I took my oath to the U.S. Constitution when I was naturalized. And my parents, who escaped a communist regime, were real refugees. They didn't, say on an app, I am an asylum seeker. They had to prove it. My father escaped from a communist prison where he was persecuted. And people, and I know this is getting a little bit technical, but it's really important. The Biden administration says that these 20 million people that they've let in are asylum seekers. Hang on a second. An asylum seeker has to meet a qualification. This is an international refugee law. You can only apply for asylum and be granted that special status if you were to return home, you would be persecuted based upon your political identity, your minority status, the language you use, or your political affiliation, right? If you're a pro-democracy activist who escaped from Cuba, a communist regime, or North Korea, and if you went back, they'd kill you, then you can apply for asylum. The people who are coming across the border, they're not asylum seekers. If these are people who are economic migrants, and no economic migrant has the right to asylum status. My parents, my 17-year-old mother, my 26-year-old father, had to be interrogated by the security forces in a refugee camp for 6 weeks to prove that they were from a class of persecuted individual who would be killed if they went back home to that dictatorship, and only then were they allowed refugee status. Now Biden says, okay, oh, you've got your application number? Okay, you're a refugee. That's how distorted and despicable this whole conspiracy is.
Exactly, it is. And it's absolutely ridiculous that the things that you and your family had to fight for and work hard for is now being handed to these illegals on a silver platter. And like you said earlier, your tax dollars, my mother's tax dollars, the tax dollars of just the American people are going to fund it.
Look
How
at what's
does that
happening
make
in
any
California.
sense?
Look at what they're doing there. So when illegals cross the border, they're literally given a phone that we pay for. They're given $5,000 of spending money, and they ask the illegal, where would you like to go? And they get to say, oh, I want to go to Boston, or I want to go to San Francisco. We pay for the plane ticket. Sadly, many charities, and I say this as a Catholic, one of the worst is Catholic charities that have become like part of the trafficking enterprise that is moving these millions of illegals across America. And then what is Gavin Newsom and what do the Democrats come up with in California? That if you're an illegal immigrant, you're going to get a loan you never have to pay back so that you can buy your first house. So veterans don't get that. Veterans are dying on the streets. We've got 100,000 people every year being murdered by fentanyl, but an illegal can get, a loan they never have to pay back as the down payment on their mortgage in California. Whatever happened to Americans? I mean, this is why America First is such a perfect description of what President Trump stands for. We're not anti-immigration, but you've got to do it legally, and Americans have to be the priority.
Absolutely. So I guess it just makes sense to the left that, oh, if we're going to value people from another country coming here legally more than the people that already live here or those that came here legally, like again, you and your family. And not only this, but Kamala Harris's plan for the economy, going back to the tax dollars thing, is to, or could be, to involve raising taxes. Would that not lead us into a deeper recession?
Oh, utterly. Utterly. I mean, it would be stagflation. When the economy stagnates at the same time that we have inflation, and under Yellen and under the Fed, they keep printing money like it's going out of style. I mean, I'll send you this. So let me just read this to you. This is a graph I can send to you, and you can post it on your Twitter. It just came up yesterday. This is jobs acquired, the different levels between foreign-born workers and native-born Americans, just to stay on this issue. And I'll give you the verbal version of what the graph says. Since October 2019, native-born U.S. workers have lost 1.4 million jobs. So Americans born here lost 1.5 million jobs. In the same period, foreign-born nationals have gained 3 million jobs. I mean, how do you justify that? That is literally America last. Americans can lose their jobs in the millions, and then who gets to have the new jobs? It's people who aren't even Americans. That's what the left has become, sadly.
Yeah, and there is no justification for it. They try to justify it with their feelings, but
yes,
when it comes to the safety of our country, there's no room for involving your personal feelings and what they consider to be moral, because it's really not if you're risking the lives of honest, true Americans.
So here, I mean, this is a little bit of a philosophical sidebar, but it's kind of important that what the people who justify this and the people who, as Democrat voters, go along with it and support it, they're doing this out of guilt, right? This is the white guilt trip. This is where virtue signaling really comes from. Oh, I'm a successful, wealthy white person, and this is how I justify my existence. That I can buy $8 lattes at Starbucks. Well, how do I live with myself as I do that? Well, I vote for a political party that says we're nice to brown people and we're going to let more illegals into the country. I've said this a million times on my radio show. The fuel of a patriot, the fuel of a conservative, is love. That's what we run on. It's love of God, love of country, love of family. What's the fuel of the left? Look at what they do. Look at their demonstrations. Look at these screaming women. Look at the pussy hat, demonstrations, Antifa, BLM. It's clear the fuel is what? Hatred. Hatred, 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 hatred. And I'm not a psychoanalyst, but I studied philosophy. My first degree is philosophy and theology. I got a PhD in political science. Where does that hatred come from? It doesn't take, it's not a great leap of analytic faith to understand it's hatred of self. They can't live with themselves. And that internal hatred what is one of the key dynamics of modern, psychiatry, or how modern behaviorists explain this? If you don't like yourself, what do? You project that hatred onto the other. You can't look yourself in the mirror. Oh, it must be because of them or them or them. And you spew the hatred outwards. That's really why these people are behaving the way they do. And as a great, who was it? It was the mathematician Blaise Pascal said, if you deny the existence of God, you can do that. But the only thing you're going to do as a modern secular leftist, if you deny the existence of God, is you leave a God-shaped hole in the soul. There's a vacuum, right? We always need something transcendent to believe in, to accept. That is our purpose. So if you deny the existence of God, you have to create a new God. We've seen this, right? In 1848, the new God was what? Marxism, the secular God. In the 21st century, it's what? It's Gaia. It's the environment. It's worshiping Greta Thunberg and the temple of global warming. This is who the left have become, and they're trying to cope with that God-shaped hole in their soul.
Yes, and the left, and kind of like we talked about last time, they're cult followers. They believe in freedom of speech and freedom of belief and freedom to state your opinion until it involves something that they disagree with.
Right.
If you speak out against their made-up issues that are far less important or not important at all to what's going on in our country, if you compare the two and say this is more important, then you're automatically a terrible person and you don't deserve freedom of speech because that's just reserved for us. So, kind of shifting gears a little bit, President Trump said that energy independence will have positive impact on the economy overall. Can you kind of elaborate on that or on how that could work?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, this is along with the border, this is like up there as equal in importance. Why? Because the lifeblood of the American economy is energy, and we are blessed not only to be sitting on almost limitless supplies of oil and gas. Now with the incredible technology of fracking, we were at such a point that we were exporting more energy than we needed, which means what? Not only do we have surplus to sell to others, especially our friends and allies, we have all the energy we need for domestic purposes. And this isn't just an economic issue. So if you're doing manufacturing, if you're making an F-150 car or a Tesla or a pair of spectacles which are made of plastic, which is made of oil, you need that energy. You need those fossil fuels. Every piece of plastic comes from fossil fuel. Not only that, not only do you unleash the economy, it's a national security imperative. If we are dependent upon other nations for our energy, we are weakened. Right now, we are buying bad quality oil from the communist regime of Venezuela. Right now, because Biden shut down fracking, because he shut down the XL Keystone pipeline, what happened to the price of oil? It's quadrupled in the last 4 years. And who is that good for? It's good for OPEC. It's good for Venezuela. It's good for Russia. Russia should have defeated Ukraine in the first few weeks, but it's so corrupt and incompetent, and the Ukrainians are such amazing fighters that they're still fighting, years later. How are they affording that? How is Russia affording that? Because thanks to Biden, they're making 4 times as much selling their oil than when we were in the White House. So people just think it's about, pickup trucks and gasoline. No, energy independence, drill, 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 is a national security imperative. If we have to go to war with somebody, if Iran, detonates an EMP device in our atmosphere and fries every circuit board in America, if China starts to try and take Taiwan, and we can't fuel our military assets, we're sitting ducks. Those amazing vehicles become just stationary targets. And to have Tim Waltz, that, I mean, I got to keep my language clean here, but that stolen valor, China loving weirdo to say, and if your listeners don't believe me, I get it. It's pretty shocking. Go online and look it up. When he says on video that our Navy needs to run on algae, we've got 12 nuclear aircraft carriers. There isn't enough algae in the world. There is enough algae in the known galaxy to motivate the engines of one nuclear aircraft carrier, let alone 12. These people are just, as we said earlier, it's an ideological cult. They're lunatics.
They are. And going back to your point about how, both our points, I guess, about how energy independence is so important, because going back years and years and years, we as Americans are have always been such, so have had such abundance in natural resources, and that's why it is so important to drill, baby, drill, because we have the privilege of having those resources. And it makes no sense when people say drilling is killing. No, because drilling is good for our country, and that's the whole purpose behind it. We as Republicans and conservatives, we want what's best for the country. The Democrats, like Kamala Harris and, again, all her cult followers, nope, that's not what they have in their hearts. They don't have our country's best interest at heart. They have what's best for them at heart.
Oh, it's all about one thing and one thing alone. It's about maintenance of power. They don't look. I think I said this last time. Maybe I didn't. How do you know it's all a lie? The Democrats are meant to be the party of what? Working class, women, and minorities, right? This is their brand. Working class, women, and minorities. What have they done to the working class by opening our borders? When you have Democrats say, we're not going to drill oil, and somebody asks, Kerry, the environment czar, well, what about all the oil workers? They can learn to code. I mean, that's how much they care about the working class. Okay, what about women? Well, we could talk about the women who are being raped as they're trafficked across the border, the young girls, or the 12-year-olds being murdered and raped and then murdered by illegals. So how do they care about women? Oh, and when they destroy Title IX to say a man pretending to be a woman falls under Title IX, so they care about women. And then minorities. How do they care about minorities? Who's going to be hurt most financially by open borders? It's not me, right? It's not established immigrants. It's not, successful Americans who are at the peak of their game. Who are you going to hurt most? I tell you who you hurt most economically. The legal immigrant who came here, was sponsored, waited 3 years, paid his money, took the test, took his oath, and he's at the bottom of the income ladder, believing in the American dream, bussing tables in a restaurant in Austin. And then they open the border to everyone, and along comes Jose, who just got here yesterday, registered himself as an asylum seeker, and he says to the owner of the restaurant, hey, I'll do that guy's job for 50% cash under the table. Who are they hurting the most? They're hurting legal migrants. So pick any sector of who used to be the Democrat demographic, and they're just destroying them. That's the Democrat Party today. Women, minorities, legal immigrants, they just don't care because it's about one thing and one thing alone, power.
It absolutely is. And, it's ironic to me that they claim to care so much about the working class and especially for illegals, making sure that they can live comfortably. But then they completely look past our homeless veterans and all the other homeless people that are in our country. California alone has such high numbers of homeless people that it's absolutely insane. And like you said, it is all about power for them. If they're if they see people that they don't think can benefit them in the long run, they completely brush past them.
No, it's simply you got to read Saul Alinsky Rules for Radicals. That little manual of how they do what they do. It can be summarized in one sentence: the ends justify the means. Whatever it takes to win. There is no moral compass. Well, if we have to say a man can become a woman, if we have to say that that open borders are good, if we have to say that stealing anything under $1,000 isn't a crime, do it, because that's how we maintain power.
Absolutely. Again, all they care about. So, shifting a little bit over to the topic of the media, many, many major news broadcasts. An example, MSNBC, huge network. Networks like them tend to be very biased towards the left. So, what do you think they have to gain or even lose from siding or not siding with them?
Well, they've made a decision. I mean, you have to understand this. These aren't independent entities. Look at who these people are. It's not the Democrat Party and the media. It's one ecosystem. It's one blob. I mean, look at who these people are. Jake Tapper was a Senate staffer for the Democrats. Jen Psaki was Biden's White House press secretary. I mean, you go on and on. Dana Bash, who interviewed Kamala Harris, her husband was what? Obama's chief of staff for the CIA. This isn't an independent entity that decided to throw their hat in with the Democrats. It is the Democrats. There are no real journalists in the establishment media. There are people who are patriots who are outside the established media, like my company, Salem, like Newsmax, like Breitbart, like Federalist. But the mainstream media is in a symbiosis with the Democrats because they are all Democrats. And as a result, it is in their interests to lie for the Democrats because they are the Democrats.
So, not only are they in cahoots with them, that's who they are at this point. Even
Yeah.
Fox News, who we previously trusted, have turned away from the truth. So,
Well, Fox News aren't Democrats. Fox News are rhinos. Ever since they called Arizona for Biden, before anybody else called Arizona on the night of the election, ever since dear old Rupert handed over the reins to his son and his incredibly left-wing wife, and ever since Paul Ryan, who detests MAGA and detests President Trump, was put on the board of Fox, it's a rhino establishment. Now, look, there are a couple of holdouts there: Greg Gutfeld, Jesse Waters, Maria Bartiromo. But Fox is in a symbiosis with the rhino establishment. The Mitch McConnells, what's Pierre Delicto's real name? Romney, the Mitt Romneys of the world. Sadly, that's what Fox has become.
it really is. And I used to watch it all the time. So, it's really sad what happened. And a
I
little
mean,
bit of
when
a
I
shorter.
realized that they'd sold their soul about 9 months ago, one of their daytime hosts, one of those blonde anchors, she did a whole segment, like a 9-minute segment, interviewing a family about how they were celebrating their 8-year-old son transitioning into a girl. When Fox does a 9-minute segment on the horrific transgender cult that mutilates young children, and they're saying, "Oh wow, it's so cool that your son is now a girl." That's when I realized I'm very glad I left there.
It's sad to see networks like that turning in to networks almost like CNN at this point.
Well,
So
it's more dangerous than CNN because what was it? It was this week, wasn't it, or last week, where Stephen Colbert had that pretty face of CNN, that woman who interviewed President Trump. And this is Colbert's show, and Colbert's audience, I mean, they're complete cult members. I mean, they're the ones doing clapping like seals when he talks about getting vaccinated for the 38th time. And he says, in all honesty, to this CNN reporter who he's interviewing, and CNN has this reputation for being unbiased. And the audience cracks up laughing. CNN biased? We know who CNN are. They're not biased at all. So everybody knows what CNN is. Fox is far more dangerous because, this is the problem with rhinos. They pretend to love America. They pretend to be patriots. I mean, think about it. Dick Cheney is now voting for Kamala. So what kind of a Republican are you exactly, Dick Cheney? They're the worst of the worst because you expect the left to be scum because they're Marxists. But when somebody has an R after their name, but they're actually helping the scum, that's even worse.
it truly is. And you know what a good name for them is? Fake triots.
Patriots. Did you come up with that?
I did.
I love that.
But,
I'm going to use that. Patriots.
because they're claiming to be something they're not. They're claiming to be these amazing people that are on our side
Right.
when they're really not. And when they're not lying to us, they're lying to themselves. So, do you truly think mainstream media is dead?
Wow, that's a good question. Well, it's not dead because there are a couple of disturbing issues. Nobody watches CNN, so CNN now has, on a good night, CNN has viewership of about 400,000 viewers in a population of 330 million. So the TV element is dead. However, you look at their website, and CNN.com is a very influential and powerful website that gets a lot of eyeballs every single day. I wouldn't say it's dead, but I would say it's on its way to retirement. Cable news in general, if you look at this shocking figures, look at viewing figures for YouTube and how many people get their information from YouTube. Vice, Fox, CNN, MSNBC. Cable is on its way out. Most people get their political information on a phone today, and sadly, far too many people get it from, apps like Facebook that are working for the Democrats. But, the good news is that alternative media is now successful in ways that they tried to cancel Breitbart after 2016. They came after me. They came after lots of conservatives. There are whole organizations whose job is, and I can give you their names, to target the advertisers for conservative media outlets. And for about a couple of years, Breitbart was like constantly that these organizations were calling up, the beer companies, the cereal companies, whatever it was, Coca-Cola, say, you advertise with Breitbart, don't you know Breitbart are Nazis? So it's this disgusting, I mean, just absolutely perverse assault on freedom of speech, but they failed. I mean, Breitbart is now stronger than that. Breitbart on Facebook has more interactions with real human beings every day than the Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN combined. So something really exciting is happening. And then you add everything else. You add the Federalist, Salem, Newsmax, which is crushing it, Daily Caller, Daily Wire. And then, I mean, look, it's kind of in its baby steps right now, but Elon has this vision for X that it will replace everything else, that it will replace your news service, YouTube, Prime, cable TV, and it will be a video streaming platform, not just for tweets and articles, but for all of your content in one place. And if that man does that and he stays in charge, his commitment to the First Amendment, that could be. If he does that, then I'll tell you that yes, mainstream media is dead.
Yeah, it really is sad, but kind of a way to put it is that mainstream media is almost in hospice, if you want to look at it like
I was
that.
looking for a better example than retirement, but I think that's perfect. That's why you're so smart, Jordan. You're right. Yeah, it's on in hospice. It's on the life support machine. It's got the little oxygen tube under its mouth, and we have to help it go on to the afterlife.
Exactly, and that's why, again, smaller networks, or not even networks, just things getting the word out, like your podcast provides great insight on issues that are happening, and just so many other networks that actually tell the truth, because for whatever reason, not only does the left see truth as a crime, but they've turned so many people into robots that now also see the truth as a crime.
Oh, absolutely. And robots, cult members. I mean, how many videos have you seen in just, what is it, the last 41 days since she was anointed candidate, of people going up to Kamala supporters at rallies and at the convention saying, oh, you're a supporter of Kamala. What's she done? That's so great. And the best they can say is, she's a woman and she's black. And you're like, what? So the credentials, you're like, oh my gosh, she's such a brat. And then, okay, why? Because of her genitalia and the shade of her skin. This is where we're at right now. That people are actually excited for things that really don't justify somebody's qualifications. We have a lot of work to do. We have to win on November the 5th, and then we have to educate our fellow Americans.
Absolutely. And you know why so many people love her, especially younger voters? Because she's keeping up with the trends. Oh, she's so cool.
Yeah.
So, another thing about Kamala, Russia is now supporting her. And I mean, I think we all know why, but would you want to elaborate on that?
Well, look, you see the Tenet Media story. Russia funding a front company through Lauren Chen to try and exploit MAGA adjacent podcasters like Tim Pool, like Dave Rubin. Russia doesn't want President Trump to win. I mean, for all the garbage about Russia collusion, let's be clear, Vladimir Putin, the former KGB colonel, is afraid of my former boss. This isn't just, Dr. G's opinion. I can prove it to you. There's something called the Battle of Kashan, when this is declassified now, when we told President Trump that there were 300 Russian mercenaries working for the Kremlin who were running around Syria, destabilizing the region. What would the Democrats do? The Democrats would do nothing. They wouldn't even, raise the issue because they're afraid of Putin. What would the neocons do? They'd probably try and invade Syria and turn it into a democracy. President Trump, strategic genius that he is, he said, 300 Russians on Putin's order are trying to destabilize Syria. Kill them all. And 4 hours later, thanks to JSOC and other elements of our defense department, those 300 Russians have been turned into red mist. Now, this is really significant. because not even the great Ronald Reagan, no president since the October Revolution of 1917, no president has killed hundreds of Russians on a battlefield in one day. Only my former boss. And what was the reaction of Putin, the man President Trump is supposed to be so enthralled with? Putin was so afraid of President Trump, he didn't even have a press conference to complain that the American president had killed hundreds of Russian soldiers in the Middle East. So they don't want him back. And he's a murderous thug, but this Uber troll interview that Putin gave a couple of days ago when he was asked, so what do you think of the election and the candidates? And he says, oh, well, that Kamala, that laugh of hers, it just makes me feel so good and so safe. I mean, it's the ultimate troll endorsement because he's actually making fun of her cackling. But deep down, it's true. He wants somebody who's an idiot, who's feckless, who's afraid of him in the White House. And that's why he wants Kamala.
And you know something about Kamala's laugh? It almost reminds me of that as a witch. And it is honestly the exact opposite of what they're saying. It's almost unsettling. Like, yeah. I'm pretty sure that she was even advised to stop with the cackling. No.
Well, the one that just exploded today of the coffee lid thing and the lipstick, I thought that was my friend Chris Cole's doing another parody. He did that fake Kamala campaign ad that Elon retweeted and had hundreds of millions of views. I was going to text Chris and say, Chris, is this another one of your AI parodies? And then you realize it's actually her. She says this thing about white lids on Starbucks and how she can't stand her lipstick showing up on the thing. And can we get another color of lid? And then she cackles. And then she doesn't cackle once. She cackles like uncontrollably, like a hyena. It is the weirdest thing. And it's real. And she's doing it. This isn't like caught secretly. This isn't, James O'Keefe filming her at some Democrat fundraiser. She's at an event at the podium, in front of the microphone, in front of cameras, and she's cackling. It is the weird, how this person became, if I were a criminal or a quote unquote criminal who'd been convicted while she was the DA for San Francisco or the AG of California, I would demand that my case be reopened, because how does a person like that even have two brain cells?
Honestly, I don't know if she does, because
I don't think she does. I mean, how many more clips do we need of? Don't you love school buses? And I love Venn diagrams. And I'm unburdened by what has gone before. I mean, what? I'd love to see you debate her. You would crush her.
Oh, that would be so great. Anyway, it's bad when even those that support her are making fun of her, making little AI parodies, including her something about a coconut tree and the yellow school bus and diagrams.
Hang on a second. What was it? It was last month. It was the Atlantic, right? I think it was the Atlantic, complete left-wing magazine. And they put her on the cover, sitting on a giant coconut. Like, is that supposed to be a compliment? Could you imagine if Breitbart put her on the cover of something sitting on a giant coconut? I mean, would they be accused of being racist?
And now people see stupidity and just being weird as iconic. I don't know. It gets so confusing at some point.
Well, look, you're thinking logically. You need to stop thinking logically. The left doesn't care about logic, and the left doesn't care about truth.
They don't. They, again, care about keeping up with the times because they think that the younger voters, and honestly, they're right to some extent, that the younger voters are just going to be like, Oh my gosh, keeping up with the times. Wow.
But what does that even mean? I mean, substantively, what does it mean? What is there anything that she's really, has she demonstrated that she's hip and up with the times? No, this is just fluff. This is just fluff. If she was such a nice person, she has had a 94% resignation rate from her office at the White House. Now, how do you lose 94% of your staff in 3.5 years if you're such a nice, hip, cool person? I mean, I think that tells you everything you need to know about her. Not only is she stupid, she's not a nice person.
No, she's not. She tries to make herself one and make herself and the public believe that she is one, but she really is not. She almost reminds me of a parent that thinks she's one of the cool moms trying to hang out with,
Yes.
I don't know, her teenage daughter and her friends saying, I can do that too.
Right. Right, exactly. And it's cringe. It's cringe. It's utterly cringe.
It really is. And, I have to say this. I think with President Trump being back in office and you and people like you being by his side, I will feel much, much, much safer than I do now.
Well, thank you. I mean, we have to make sure we win first, God willing. But how can you not? I mean, if we're not part of that cult tribe, if you live in the real world, if you walk down the streets of San Francisco, LA, Baltimore, I mean, I live just outside Washington, D.C. in Virginia. I mean, think of this. And I'm just taking politics out of the equation completely. Last year, Washington is not a big city. Washington is 600,000 people. It's actually quite small. In a city of 600,000 people, we had more than 900 carjackings. That's the nation's capital. We had a female FBI agent who had her car jacked from her at gunpoint in the afternoon in broad daylight. And you're thinking, when President Trump, I mean, forget about war in the Middle East or war in the Ukraine. When President Trump was in the White House, we didn't have FBI agents being carjacked, on Capitol Hill. There's a member of Congress who was carjacked, literally a couple of blocks from his apartment. Whether you're young like yourself, whether you're a parent, whether you're a businessman. I mean, do you remember that bodega, that amazing, they were so stupid to be prosecuting President Trump in New York, forcing him to go there every day, which meant afterwards, what would he do? They'd find something really cool for him to do, like go to deliver pizza to some firefighters or whatever. Do you remember that day he went to Harlem after the trial, after the day in court, and he went to that bodega, and I think I've played it 100 times on my show. He's in the bodega, and there's this like 10-year-old black kid outside who starts chanting, "We love you, Trump!" And then there's this little Hispanic girl behind him who joins in, "We love you, Trump!" And then all the adults start chanting, "We love you, Trump." This is Harlem. This should be 112% Democrat. And they're chanting, "We love you, Trump." Now, what people missed in the story, do you know what that bodega was? Why he went to that bodega?
I do remember that part about the children chanting his name, right. And that.
So he was I didn't even know this thing existed. He was invited by the American Association or the New York State Association of Bodega Owners. And that bodega was the one where the owner was arrested and put in prison by Alvin Bragg for defending himself against a robber. There was this case like 2 years ago. Guy comes in with his girlfriend, starts stealing everything, threatening the guy, hitting him, trying to strangle him. And this little immigrant, I think he's from Costa Rica, had a knife behind the counter, pulls out the knife and defends himself. And he gets arrested for murder by Alvin Bragg. Now, it creates such a furore that eventually Alvin Bragg had to release him. But you know what happened to that legal immigrant? This goes back to everything we've been talking about for the last, whatever it is, hour. That legal immigrant who had a little slice of the American dream, came here, paid his money, took the test, took the oath, scrimped and saved, bought his little bodega. Where is that man right now? He went back to Costa Rica because he can't survive. I mean, crime is so out of control under Biden. And he thinks, I defend myself, try and save my life, and they arrest me? That's the last 4 years. So if you live in the real world, there's only one choice. It's only President Trump.
It really is. And honestly, I hear people talking about good parts of town, bad parts of town. There really is no such thing as a good part of town or a bad part of town anymore. There just is the condition of our country. I'm a runner. I go for runs almost every day. And my mom doesn't even let me go for runs on my own because she knows
Good.
we both know, rightfully so, that she doesn't let me do that, that it's not safe out there. No matter where you go, it truly is not safe under Biden and Kamala and, God forbid, Walz.
My daughter was an athlete in college. She's a rower. She's now a trainer. And she lives in San Francisco. And I don't want to... It's tough to hear from your daughter that she's going for a run and there are homeless people everywhere. And she says, I don't want another one jumping up and screaming at me simply because I'm running down the sidewalk. These people need our help. And they think that it's okay just to throw them onto the street and then they can threaten young women or do something worse to a bodega owner or whatever. This is when you realize the left has completely lost touch with reality.
They really have. And it's truly sad, especially as a woman in this country, to be afraid of living, just afraid of having a life in this country. Because, I mean, no matter where you go, there's always going to be danger around the corner.
We have to understand that crime exists because we are fallen, and it has to be dealt with. And the real victim is the person who is attacked, who is mugged, who has their property taken from them. The idea, and this is where when you start to realize it is truly a mental illness. When you have these DAs funded by Soros and other foundations who follow a philosophy that the perpetrator is the victim, that the justice system is arrayed against them, and especially if they're colored, they're the real victim, not the person who was mugged, stabbed, raped, had their bodega robbed. Then you realize these people have no soul. They're in league with the devil. And at the end of the day, they don't even think of the consequences. What happens in a nation where that's the driving philosophy of a district attorney? Well, what happens is Jocelyn Nungare. Remember, I mean, maybe you don't know the details, but the killer of Jocelyn Nungare, or one of them. No, sorry, this is Laken Riley, who was killed while running. The beautiful nursing student. She was killed by an illegal immigrant. She was 22 when she was raped and strangled and thrown into a ditch. Killed by an illegal immigrant who had already been arrested in New York for endangerment of a minor, of a child. As an illegal immigrant, he's arrested and let out without bail by Alvin Bragg, because he's black or brown. He's an illegal immigrant, poor legal immigrant. He's the victim. He leaves New York, goes to Atlanta, follows that beautiful young girl on her run, rapes her, and then murders her. That person, that one death, could have been prevented. All of these deaths, Rachel Marin, Jocelyn Nungre, all of them could have been prevented if we said one thing. The only people who come to this country are people who come here legally. And then you create a legal system where the victim is the victim and the perpetrator is the perpetrator. End of story. It's not more complicated than that.
Exactly. And it makes no sense whatsoever that because someone comes here illegally, and this, like, again, makes no sense, they get special privileges for
Yes.
coming here illegally.
Yes.
No one should get special privileges if you are living in America, whether no matter how you got here, and if you did get here illegally, you shouldn't be here at all. You should not get special treatment regardless.
But there's also a broader philosophical point. What has that person told you? And I'm not talking about, true refugees who are escaping persecution, broke out of a communist prison like my father, but, real immigrants, real people who've suffered in other countries. If you're an economic migrant and you come to somebody else's country and your first act is to enter the territory against the law, what are you saying about that country? I would find it impossible to go to another country illegally and then respect the country. How do you respect the country with whose relationship your first act began with a crime? It just makes no sense to me.
It really doesn't. And I do have one more question for you.
Yeah.
So the National Fraternal Order of Police
Right.
recently endorsed President Trump. So how big of an impact do you think this will have on undecided voters?
It's a good question. It depends, honestly, on a very practical issue. How many undecided voters know that happened, right? We have to do everything to make sure that they know, because if you're an independent undecided voter and you're not on Twitter or you only watch CNN, you're not going to know, right? You're not going to know. So the answer, like, as in so many things politically, is it's up to us. We need to tell people, our friends, our colleagues. We need to post the clip from that amazing event at the Fraternal Order where President Trump discusses his endorsement. We have to post it again and again and again. If we get the word out enough times, then people will say, wow, the men and women who run towards the gunfire, who risk their lives every time they execute a traffic stop, they want President Trump. Wow, that's interesting. So really, how much of an impact will it have? How loudly can we bang that drum is my response.
Yeah, exactly. And there really is a difference between ignorance and simply not knowing.
Yeah.
Which because some people just cover their ears and say la 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 because they don't want to know the truth.
Right.
But then there's the people that want to know, but they don't, because they don't always know that there's that information out there that they can be learning, that they can be giving themselves access to.
Yeah, let me give you a little bit of advice, and don't take it the wrong way. You have to understand that you and me and your mother and everybody listening and watching right now, we're all freaks, okay? Because we love politics. We find it fascinating. So my father told me once, he said, politics, filthy, filthy business, but it's so interesting. That's who we are, right? We're engaged with this stuff. It motivates us. I've got bad news for you guys. Most Americans aren't like us. Most Americans don't know who the vice president is. Most Americans just want to make sure they can make the car payment at the end of the month and their kids have a new pair of shoes for the new school year. They're not political animals. They're just living their lives. And they don't realize that the future of the republic is at stake and they need to get politically active. So that's why it's incumbent upon us, you, me, your listeners, your viewers, everybody who loves America, to gently educate all of those people. Not like me. I'm a little bit different. You know, I'm a little bit more pugilistic than the average MAGA person, but that's my character. But everybody else, you and everybody else, have to gently bring our fellow Americans who aren't political to the right conclusion. And the best thing, it's like Reagan said in his election campaign. He asked one question: are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Super simple. Are you better off? Economically, price of gas, crime, everything. Are you better off? Ask that question, plant the seed. Hopefully they'll realize they're not better off than they were under President Trump. That's our duty for the next 58 days.
I think that there are so many people out there that are just undecided about what they believe or don't truly do enough research enough to know, but they really need just to be nudged a little bit. And not only is it interesting, like you said, it's so very important for the well-being of everyone.
Yeah.
And I will proudly wear the title of a political geek or freak or nerd or whatever anyone wants to say. Because if that's the title that I'm wearing for caring about our country, I'll wear it with pride.
God bless you. That's why we love you, Jordan. Keep doing what you do. You got to get some hats now that I'm a political geek. Let's do it.
Absolutely. Gonna get started on that.
You've got the T-shirt, right? You showed me the T-shirt last time from Butler, Pennsylvania.
Absolutely.
Good. All right. That was super fun.
It really was. Thank you. I didn't even realize how much time had passed because I was having so much fun.
That's how it works. If you want
It
more,
is.
follow me on Substack, follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Parler. Check out my wife's latest book, Next Gen Marxism, that really tells you how the left became what it is. And talk to you next time.
Talk to you then. Bye, Dr. G. Thank you.
God bless.
God bless you.